Welcome to the Reimagine podcast, where we are reimagining healing, art, and life itself with Claire Sangster of CS Therapies and Deborah Epstein of the Cosmic Dreaming Launch.
I was teaching on Sunday workshop for chronic pain, and was using the yogic, we were talking about the yogic principles of things like ahimsa, and ahimsa is one of the yamas that means non-violence. And so at its heart says, am I causing harm to myself, to others, or by omission? And there's this whole thing of just, I love the fact that it's a restraint, not an action. This is really like speaking to me at the moment in the yogic tradition of like, oh yeah, this isn't asking me to do more. It's specifically asking me to do less, to be caring towards myself. And so ahimsa, non-harming, parigraha, like not grasping. And so not grasping onto this idea that I should be able to. I can be very much a grasper onto things like that. Of like, oh, but I should be able to do this. I should be able to do that. I should. And actually it's not. You then come up against another one, which would be satya, which is truthfulness. And it's like being honest with myself about my capacity, like, and naming that this hurts, this isn't available today. There's a really interesting phrase that I have to accredit to ChatGPT that said, not spiritualizing endurance. Which I thought was really interesting, that we're like, and this isn't in the holistic world. Yeah, we can spiritualize how I am, I can put up with this, look at my pain. I remember having a huge theme once around this, the wording pain tolerance, because it suddenly really pissed me off as to why am I rewarding myself for tolerating pain? Surely I should be being like, I don't want to tolerate this much pain. I want less pain tolerance. I don't mind pain resilience. That's very different energetically. Why am I trying to be more tolerant of something that's completely unacceptable?
Yeah.
Why am I rewarding or spiritualizing how pain tolerant I am? I just think it's, when you actually stop and think about those things, it makes absolutely, like, it's all backwards. And that's why I'm really enjoying this idea of restraint around it, of like, right, ahimsa, non-violence. I'm very good at, I was saying to you earlier, wasn't I, that I violently practiced yoga the other day and then knocked myself out for 3 days because I had ripped every bit of fascia in my body to the point where I couldn't really move. And I thought it was funny because then I'd also stolen 3 days from myself. So I also hadn't been practicing this non-grasping or non-stealing idea either. And that actually, we were talking in this workshop about sort of, before you do anything like that, any form of practice or whatever, it's actually the first part of that is getting honest with how you are in that moment. And so there were questions of like, I don't know, am I approaching this with curiosity or with judgment? What might happen if this question caused, I'll see what your response to this is. So this caused huge controversy in the workshop, right? This question that said, what might happen if I did a little less or let this be unfinished? And the word unfinished, not everyone, but a couple of them really went off because they immediately went, can't do it. It would have to be finished.
Yeah.
And it led to some and there was a really strong belief pattern for them around the fact that you can't leave it undone.
Yeah.
Can't leave it in the
Yeah. The first place I go to with unfinished will define it for me. Like, how do I know when something's done? Like, we
went into this. Yeah. They were counting. So
am I done? Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm done, then I guess I say I'm finished, right?
Yeah. And then it's the end. Whereas they were like, oh no, I couldn't. I said, if you were doing 5 or something, could you finish on 2? No. Could you finish on this? No. And then they had this real thing around numbers and that you'd have to finish on 5, 10. They had different acceptable numbers. So we really dug into it as to like, okay, what's the least you could do that's acceptable to your belief system around this? And then someone else brilliantly said, well, just count in fruit, because if you stop on an apple, there's no meaning attached to it. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, go apple, banana, carrot. probably not in ABC order, but because then there's, and that threw them completely, because they're like, oh yeah, like there's no, I don't have a judgment system around if I've done cucumbers worth of sun salutations, because it means nothing.
It's interesting because I just this week started that, because I've been sick, so I haven't really been doing anything, but I've been walking, right? So there's a whole thing there, right? So if I've been walking every day, then I'm actually doing something, but I'm going, oh, I haven't really done anything. So there's that conundrum. But like, I wanted to start doing more calisthenic type movement, but because I've, been sick and stuff like that, I didn't want to push it. But I actually didn't use counting as a metric to say, okay, this was enough of movement. I went by how my body felt, and I feel like that's kind of one of those benefits about being sick, because you're in your body a little bit more, because it's already uncomfortable, right? So we do tend to connect with our bodies more. I feel like through pain, it's loudness. We're just used to that. It's just how we're used to being connected to it. It's, I wouldn't say it's a challenge that I can't stay in my body unless I'm feeling pain, because that's not the truth of it. I'm in my body a lot. I've learned that it feels good to be grounded. It feels good to be centered in my body. I get my information when I'm working with people by being able to feel my own body. So it's being able to be okay with all the different sensations in there. But I think there's something about, like, when we take it, completion, and we move it into like a system of something outside of us, a system of measurement outside of us that says you're complete or not complete. And it's really, to me, it's all about feel, right?
It's so interesting that you name it like that, actually, because I've been going to the gym 2 or 3 times a week for months. I never hurt after the gym. I don't get hangovers from the gym, because I don't have a set thing I'm trying to do. It just, like you said, listen to my body. When I did that yoga practice the other day, I did that Ashtanga standing sequence, which is set, or in my mind, how I was taught it. You do this number of this, you do this for this number of breaths. And I have a block around doing less than that, because that's what was taught. And it's, so yeah, I was using an external mode of reference to tell me what I should be capable of that day. I can do the Ashtanga standing sequence any day I like. I don't need to do it to the measurements of somebody else's body. Yeah. I could do 1.5 sun salutations, or I could do an adaptive practice. Like, I know I teach this all the time, which is what makes it so funny. Yeah. Is that I would never, like, literally one of my favorite, I don't have favorite clients, but if I did, she'd be quite near the top of the list. I was telling her this
You're
story.
All my favorites.
Yeah, they really are, though. I love all of them for like completely different reasons. They're great. But this one, she said to me, it's funny, this person I know called Claire often talks about how you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, whatever. So my own teachings back, well, not my teachings, but what I have said back, which is great, because it means they listen.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because like, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking about, like, just even breath work and breath exercises. And I started doing some work with this person that was very interesting, the way they started with breathing exercises, because all based on like how we don't really breathe deep enough. Our breathing's really shallow, and it's the world we live in, right? It's everything's go, 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 right? And this is kind of what we're talking about here, is like learning to slow down a little bit and being okay with slowing down and not having to have an excuse to do it, But anyway, they start out with a timed amount of breath, right? So breathing into your belly and breathing in on a certain count, and then releasing on a certain count. And then you end up, through this practice of doing it, you end up finding your own natural rhythm of breathing, because your body does have a natural rhythm of breathing, but we're not attuned to it. And so I found that really interesting. You use counting, you use measurement to help you find the sweet spot. That's what he calls it, the sweet spot of your own of your own breath. And then it's so cool when you find it, because it pauses where it needs to pause. And it's not like you're holding your breath. It releases when it's ready to release. And I say it's like my body learned how to breathe and I just let it. And I feel like when I'm doing that, I feel more connected to the field around me. It doesn't feel like a field around me anymore that I'm separate from. I feel like I'm part of it. So I feel like, everything's in a rhythmic breath, almost as if I'm being breathed. And
yes,
it's such a cool feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all of these things are helpful with, the other big word would be discernment, wouldn't it? If like sometimes we have to push and it's appropriate. Sometimes it is appropriate to stay at work when some of you would like to go home. And sometimes it is not appropriate to stay at work when some of you knows that you should not be there. And it's like neither is necessarily right or wrong, other than what happens. And it's like, I am much more accustomed at this point in my whatever to cancelling than not cancelling. Like I have been treated by people who are sick. I don't like it. I feel it dishonors the space. And I'm spending money. And I would not ask people to spend money on a treatment that I was giving that I felt was lower than it was worth. Obviously we don't all turn up at 100% all the time, but I take that part of it really seriously. If I have a responsibility as the practitioner to at least try and be somewhat present.
And there's times too, and I've had the experience of like, I'm not feeling 100%, but then when you get into the treatment room, that energy is flowing. And after the session, you're like, whoa, I feel like I got some too. So there's that as well, so it is a discernment.
And but also you touched on the interesting point of like, I am so aware, we've talked about it loads historically, of like the hollow bone idea or the channel idea or the vessel idea of like, actually when I walk into treatment space, what I'm doing is getting out of the way. So it is not necessarily on the work that you and I do. It's not necessarily reliant on me being there. It's reliant on me being clear enough to be able to bring in whatever wants to be brought in for that person. And so that it's very, very difficult to explain it in a way that doesn't make it like that makes any sense to people who don't know that.
The way I kind of experience it and the way I talk about it, and I do it this way because it's what I do. So I have like a field of energy. The mesa behind me is a patterned medicine field, and it has an energetic structure to it. And so I'm actually starting to say, like, I'm more of a field tender than I would say that I'm a healer, right? Because it's all energetic fields that we're dealing with, right? And so it's really more of like, what's off in this field? I don't even have to know intellectually. It's vibrationally off. And as a healer, if you're working with intention and know how to work with a field, you just show up with the field does the work, right? And you let go, and it's like this dance, and it's magical, right? And that's where it gets kind of hard to language it, because it does start sounding a little magical, but it's always going on in the background anyway, whether you're mechanically doing the technique the way you were taught to do it for X amount of time. Like in MFR, we're told you got to hold, 90 to 120 seconds. And that's just when the fascia starts to move, and you want to hold, 2 to 3 minutes. And everyone in the beginning goes, oh my God, how am I going to hold that for 2 to 3 minutes? But it's like, we picture holding like, tension. And it's really more of, once you're connected, that first amount of time is all about connection. It's about getting your mind out of the way, coming into center, feeling the person you're working with, cohering with them or cohesing with them or coming into vibration with them. Then things start to move and the energy starts to flow. But that starts to happen the more you do the work, the more you get treated, the more you go on your own journey, because you start to realize like, oh, everything is just energy, even though this is matter that's in front of me. It's a form in front of me, and it obeys certain laws of physics. It also obeys the laws of quantum physics and energy. And it's both, that's the whole thing we talk about all the time. Yes, and, right? It's yes, this, and yes, that. And miracles happen when we get our mind out of the way. Wow, I didn't know I was going to go off into that tangent. As we're talking about happiness.
And it relates back, doesn't it? Of like, actually, if we come into things with the awareness of being held in a field, even, then actually, like, it's not on me. My capacity grows exponentially in the knowing that there is something supporting me.
Yeah.
And that's where a great lot of I prefer the word contentment to happiness. Like, if I was going to chase something in this lifetime, it would be contentment. Like, I'm not so interested in happiness is great, but it's like I want to be content in every moment as much as possible with whatever it is that is there, because it's like then I am really in reverence of the experience of being here, even if it hurts. It's like I have a very strange relationship with pain, as we know. Like, I am in awe of pain a lot of the time. I find it fascinating. Like, I have way too much of it at times. I find it really interesting as an experience. And I think it circles back to this where I think that's where actually I can almost use my knowing that I am held and that I am resourced by the universe as an excuse to push too hard. Like, if I was being brutally honest, like, I knew I'd be absolutely fine if I stayed at work on Tuesday, almost too much. Like, I was almost arrogantly like, nah, I'll be okay. And I was. Like, I was trashed. Like, I'm not going to lie. And then I came back and, like, my dog was sick all night. So it's like I didn't sleep. And actually, I did for the first time in probably, I don't sleep in the day. I find it very tricky. I went to bed at 4 o'clock yesterday. No, I know it was earlier than that. Went to bed yesterday afternoon anyway and slept, because I did give myself permission to rest, because I was like, do you know what? I am aware I've pushed the envelope a bit too far here, and I'm not going to push my luck to the point where I actually crash myself out and then have to take a week off. Like, I may sometimes be slightly arrogant, but I'm not that arrogant that I think I'm indestructible. Had experience of burnout too many times to think that that's a thing that is not. And also, we were talking about, like, the New Year thing. I got this thing about this word. I don't know why this word came. I don't like New Year's Eve. I don't have a thing about it. I don't find it a very odd concept, and especially in January when it's winter. And but this word was reclamation, of this thing of like, I'm going to reclaim stuff this year. And I'm like, that specifically on that night was about reclaiming some things from some historic fear patterns. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. It's had enough of me. Like, I'm reclaiming this. I'm reclaiming this time and this date and this whatever from this. I've given it enough of me now. And then there's other things like reclaiming a pattern of working that suits me better, which means having more time out, either between or around. It doesn't mean I necessarily even need time off, but I need time that feels more like resourcing to me. And I think I haven't been very good at that in the last few years, and it has a cost. And actually, that's where I get, I used to be great at, like, you've met my friend Sarah. Like, I used to ring her up and be like, should we go to the beach at 5 o'clock at night? The nearest beach to where we lived was 2 hours away. We'd go just to watch the sunset, because it would be so fulfilling. We'd get so much from the karaoke on the way there, and the sea and the sky, and it was so worth it for that. And I said to someone earlier, I'm going to go, this year's more about like chasing sunsets and writing and art and those things that actually give something back to me rather than just take, because I love that I can give so much to people, but I want to make sure I can keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be crashed out sick.
Yeah, there is so much value in the time we spend alone, in the time we spend daydreaming, and the time we spend writing or painting or journaling or knitting or whatever that that thing is, that we would sometimes label a guilty pleasure. It's even that we put those two things together, right? Guilty pleasure. And I was thinking about it. It's like, we really know how to do suffering. We really know how to do a lot of pain. We really know how to be sad. We know how to resist it. We know how to resist all of the things we don't want, right? Which is why it's interesting that, the restraint part of things, right? But like when we talk about happiness, right? You said content, and then there's joy, and then there's just peacefulness, and then there's just, there's different degrees. So I would say different vibrations of a singular feeling, right? That has at the opposite end of it. We've talked about this before, about how anger and love, or passion and anger, like they're just opposites on the same like frequency, right? And I think happiness and sadness, and it's not that like, oh my God, if I get sad about something, I'm failing at it. I'm failing at being happy. It's like, no, that's part of the wave pattern of life, right?
Sad and happy. I don't actually know if they'd be opposites, but we'll use them. I'd have to sit a bit more to their energy with. But
I think for most people, it's rudimentary enough that we could talk about it in that way.
Yeah, but if you go far enough into either of them, you're similarly going to hit the other one. I remember having a really strong experience of that. Of it will work with these words. I'd probably use different ones, but if I had a friend who got really sick really suddenly, like I didn't know. And I remember the only way I knew to handle how big the emotion was at the time was I went out driving in my tiny little car. It was winter with the windows down, really loud metal music on, because I just needed sensation that matched the intensity of the emotion. But what I saw in it was I was so sad because I'd allowed myself to care about this person so much. And so in the depth of the sadness, I found this amazing happiness of like awe of being like, wow, like I let myself care about this kid to the point where I am this sad that she's not okay right now. And in that was such beauty that I'm like, this is totally worth this end, this sad thing is totally worth this.
Yeah.
Like it, or the other way around. This is totally worth this, but it all becomes one thing. And I knew in that moment I'd go right out and do it again. Like I would love the next person just as hard, if not harder.
Yeah.
Because it's worth it, not because it isn't. I'll take the sad because I want the other
well,
bit.
It's part of why we're here, right? Like when we were souled and we were one, we weren't having these experiences of opposites, right? So we were just in what, always joyful. Well, how do we even know that was joyful? It was just a state, it's just a state of.
That's what Jill Bolte Taylor said though, and when she she said it got boring when she didn't have any narrative, because it's just like there's nothing to compare it to. So she's like, it got dull.
Just for if you're listening, Jill Bolte Taylor had a stroke. She's a neuroscientist or neurologist or whatever. She was working at Harvard University and she had a stroke. The book's called My Stroke of Insight. She also has Whole Brain Living, which is another great book I love. And she had the unique experience of having a stroke and knowing exactly what was happening to her because she studied the brain. So she knew, she had the language for it. She knew what was happening to her. So you'd think, oh my God, this is scary. But it actually, for her, because she's more of a scientific mind, she was more like, wow, like I'm in the shower and I can't tell because of the left brain being offline. She was more in her right mind. And so she couldn't distinguish me herself from the shower or from the water droplets because she was in that oneness state. To me, that part, it's the part I remember of the book the best. It's fascinating to me because we have that capacity within us too, right? So it took her left brain to shut off so she could have that experience. But as you say, like we need to have the other part in there to give us the boundaries, to give us the form, to give us the separation, to know this is me, that's you, this is, this case, and this is my water, and it's all separate. And now I can have these experiences. Unfortunately, what we've done is we create further separation within each other by fighting and judging and all the things that we do to isolate ourselves, which is we are isolating ourselves for safety, but then at the same time, that's the last thing we want because it's not happy. But then we also have these traumas that also, that create a lot of fear if you want to connect with someone, because you all of a sudden you go into the memory, not consciously, but your body goes, oh, remember when we were connected to these people the last time, oh, this is what happened to you. So, it's hard for you to let your authenticity out. And that's the work that it takes. It's allowing yourself. But I think, I feel like I have so much jumble coming in all at once around this, because I'm like seeing how the yogic practice of restraint plays in with this, in a sense of being gentle with yourself. So it's not forcing yourself because I'm supposed to. It's like allowing yourself slowly to acclimate your system into connecting. And then I also, as I'm sitting here blathering on, is, how much COVID played a part in that fear, that another dimension of fear, went with groups and connecting and keeping ourselves separate, what feels safe, and how we connect.
I think that just jumped on. I think that the amount of fear that created wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't already there. Like, it just exacerbated an already there problem that's been there for millennia. It's not a new, it's the latest version of a pattern that's been around forever. You read books like The Alphabet versus the Goddess, or all these things that look at different nuances of the same thing, of like, we'll always look for separation. But I think that's because we are separate, in that we are out of a universe of, I used to talk about it all the time, didn't I? Like, we are in the 0.000000001% of embodied matter in this universe. So we are already by nature different and separate. And it's that, some of that's the magic of it and some of it's the torment of it, isn't it? It's another yes and. Like, the more I become aware of it, I remember going down a big rabbit hole of feeling the gut-wrenching pain of the initial separation of the universe or whatever, and then being like, hang on 1 second, that's not all that happened there. That wasn't all bad. Actually, if I am all one, I can't see, so I have to be in separation to get the universe. Is always, this is what's at the bottom of quantum physics, isn't it? Of everything, our own, the universe is experiencing itself through every single differentiation, and that's how it learns. And so actually our sole responsibility is to be fully me and fully you, not me trying to be you trying to be me, because otherwise what's the point? Because the universe then isn't learning. Like, we as a collective, we are not learning anything new because we're copying it.
Yeah, that's such a really good, like I should be, instead of being jealous of what you're doing, right? Not that I am, but I mean, how that happens, like social media stuff kind of perpetuates that, the fear of missing out and all that. And instead of that, it's like celebrating what you're doing, because what you're doing in your own unique way is doing a job for all of us, right? So we all should be trying to be here doing what we're here to do, and not to be going, and we do that. I think money is the driver on this too. Like, we see somebody do the same. They got a lot of, they got a lot of attention for it. They got a lot of money. They made a big business on it. And our system is one of, it's more like a pyramid, right? So it's the Monopoly game. Whoever gets all the pieces wins, right? And, but in that model, the collective loses, right? And you ultimately lose because you're the collective too. So we should be starting to see this enough to foster and celebrate each other and the differences that we have, instead of trying to homogenize everybody into a false oneness that is just never going to happen in the way that in the material world. It's like, no, we're in a material world that is all about diversity, right? And separation is part of that diversity. The other thing that I was thinking about recently too, and I don't know if this is going off in a different tack, but it's like, it's in the nature of separation, is how inside of ourselves that we have ourselves even separate inside of ourselves, right? when we talk about like my higher self or my soul or my this archetype, like my victim archetype, we have it like we have ourselves all broken up into little archetypal personalities with which we tell a story. And the story is the story of our life. But then what we do even further is we, within that, if it's, I think if we're not aware of how that we're doing that we're living an illusion and we are living a story, that we further create and delineate aspects of ourselves into that over there and this over here when it's all us anyway. And it's, you know, I don't know if I'm articulating it the way I was thinking about it, but to me, it made me laugh anyway, because it's like, it's just inherent in us to be separate. But I feel like the creation of separate, that the need to do it in a way that's harmful to and detrimental to each other, to ourselves, is like, we don't need to be doing that.
Like the joke of separation is that we are still connected though, isn't it? Because it's like
Right.
the thing separating me from you right now is space. Well, what's connecting me to you right now? Space.
I love that, because when you play with that idea, it breaks the spell of separation, or it breaks the spell of loneliness. I love that, you know, the thing that separates you is the thing that connects you. And just start to say that, think about that.
We see that in the body, don't we? With like people talking about the connective tissue. It's like, but they never seem to hear what they're saying, which is connective. Right. They're like, oh, well, you know, the slightly older model of the fascia as a sheath, or the fascia as a layer of this or a layer of that. And it's like, it literally is called the connective tissue network.
Yeah.
Like it does both. It's the biggest yes and, isn't it? If like I do need some form of separation within my body, or like, I don't know, this stuff in my bowel is going to leak out into somewhere. It's not very helpful. So I am thankful that there is separation within my system. Also, I'm very much someone who talks about the parts of my, like, I'd probably be brilliant in IFS, in like internal family systems work, but because it's how I naturally work with myself, of like, but I'm always like, this part of me, that part of me, my so-and-so brain, my this brain, my that, the other, just because that's how I experience myself, as being like, it depends what's in the driving seat that day. And also I can resource, and sometimes one part of me really needs to parent another, or another part really needs to shut the hell up. And it's like, it's all valid, and it's all part of being I can't remember if the multidimensional conversation was on this recording or before.
Yeah, we did talk about it. We tapped into the multidimensional world.
You know, we can do. It always fascinates me that people think you can only do one emotion at a time. So say there's a big thing, I don't know, like Barney having my dog. I'm completely obsessed with my dog. I love him to bits. And he had 2 seizures last night, and it sucked. And I'm like, I can be really sad about that. It doesn't make me love him any less. And like, it doesn't make me not think he's funny, or not think he's absolutely, like, I can have all of those feelings. I can be scared and I can still love him. I can be angry that he has this, and I don't really hate God for it. It just is what it is. I can have all of these things at once, and they're all valid. And also, it's not the worst thing in the world ever. It's like, the dog had a seizure. It's sad, and also he'll be okay and I'll be okay. And it's a bad example, really, because there would have been better examples. But it's just that thing of like, it's not. I don't need. There's that you come into that thing of sympathy versus empathy, don't you? Of like, you know, you can empathize with the fact that, I didn't sleep and it was really tiring, and I love that dog and it's awful to see him suffering. Or you can go into, oh no, poor you, and it's like the energy's different. Like, empathize with me. It don't like make me feel like it's worse than it is either, because that doesn't help. Not.
And I feel like I hate like the, oh no, I'm so sorry, and it's like, but I'm not sorry. It's an experience I'd rather not be having right now, but
I've got quite into going, I am so sorry this is happening, and if I could take it away I would, but I can't, so I'm going to sit here with you in it, and I'm not leaving. That's what I can offer. I can't make it better. I can really honestly say, I am sorry this is happening for you. And I'm not going to leave you in it on your own. Like
Yeah. It's
that's
a lot of times what I ask if I don't know, like what, is it really just asking, what do you need? You
yeah.
know, ask what you need. Like you don't have to have the answer for the person. And I feel like I think we're just ill equipped to handle when something goes off for somebody. And
Mm.
I think that's our own stuff, really. There's so much like things we call a failure, like going back to being sick. I
Mm.
didn't do anything wrong. I
Yeah.
know I didn't do anything wrong, yet there's still it's still there, like,
Mm.
oh, I must have run myself down. I mustn't have like not taken my vitamins but why do I need to make myself wrong for a state that, I live in a world where there's germs and my body just didn't know this one. And so it needed the time and space to figure it out. And the symptoms that we have during cold is part of that process. But
Mm.
it's like, it's not a failure. I don't need to make myself wrong for it. And the other thing I talk about, like in the same vein, is when we die, death is not a punishment. You didn't lose a battle with something.
It's back to this thing of like actually this whole idea of needing permission to rest or happy or whatever it is we seem to think we need permission for. It's like actually it starts with that thing of being honest about where we're at, and it's that um oh, my brain just went offline. Um, that like
I was like, we were coming. I'm like, because you're
it was
coming full
coming, it was going, and
circle.
then it went very on the other side. Why do I need permission in the first place if I'm not being true with that? There's an authenticity in saying, actually, I'm not perfect. You know, you want to learn something from John Barnes. He wasn't perfect. Why is
Yeah,
that so shocking? Or
I
why is it
know.
so wrong? Like,
Yeah,
and it's like, actually, but I am going to strive till my dying day to be the best that I can be.
yeah,
Like that's my, and I'm going to get it wrong, knowing full well I'm never going to achieve it. It's not going to stop me
yeah.
trying.
Yeah, you're going to make people angry. We're both going
Yeah,
to. We're going to make people angry. We're going to make
just
people
me,
not like
just
us.
me. I'll make people angry.
Yeah. We're going to push people away, not meaning to, but that's just how we bump off each other. We don't resonate with everybody, and not everybody's going to like us. And I feel like that's part of our authenticity too, like, you know, going into people pleasing, like what, as an artist, as a healer, as a writer, as, these things that we're putting out into the world. It's like we get to say how we experience the world, and I'm not making myself right about it. All I'm doing is relating how I see the world through my experience. That doesn't mean that it's right, and it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that that's how I experience it. You may not agree with me, and that's okay. You may agree with me, and that's okay too. But we all have a different experience. It's when I take my experience and put it above yours and then want to make you wrong because you're not having the experience that I'm having. And I think that kind of it goes right back to to the what we were talking about. Now, I just lost track of what I was going to say. We're both getting tired, but it goes right back to that separation idea, you know. And I do want to kind of go back to where you were talking. You're kind of bringing us full circle back to the permission piece, that about whether it's being happy or resting, not needing to have a reason to rest, just resting because we're tired, resting because we need it, not because, okay, well, I earned it. I put a full day in. I've worked really hard and now I deserve a break, or I'm really sick, so I now need to rest. It's like just resting because that's what I need to be doing right now.
My favorite phrase from the workshop the other day was sustainability over intensity. And it's,
Mm,
if you know me at all, I am definitely an intensity junkie. But this idea of like, well, actually, there's a much nicer level of intensity within sustainability of like, I don't, this becomes very unsustainable. And
mhm.
it's like, well, actually, how'd it be to be able to do this, but for longer? You
Yeah.
know, like, never going to do this. That would be boring. But it's, yeah, like if I, and I'm interested in the relationship between people pleasing and the lack of permission to rest.
Mm.
like how much of, if I'm sick, so I have chronic pain, we know this, it's not new news. I don't tell people very often, but I think it's because then they want to fix me and I don't see it as being broken.
Yeah.
So, but I wonder if there's a degree of people pleasing and having to be like, I have chronic pain and I can do all these things. And it's like,
Yeah.
why do I
Or
need,
is
I'm
it
not,
just, yeah. Or is it just a boundary, you know?
some of it's that I'm just that thing of like, oh, I think the work thing, if I was on an off day, and it's like, is there, if I was practicing this thing of like, self-study or self-listening or being really like truthfulness within me, back to the yogic principles again, it's like, can I 100% say that I stayed at work on Tuesday for honorable reasons, or was some of it people pleasing, was some of it ego, was some of it, why we touched on the arrogance part earlier, but it's like,
Mhm.
and I can still do that. Doesn't make it wrong that I did that, but it's interesting to sit back and take inventory of it and be like, okay, what was my motivation for doing that? And
Yeah.
I could equally say, like, I had a really good friend of mine saying, are you sure you should not be cancelling? You'd be saying the same to me. And she's right. I would have said the same to her if the roles were reversed. And but I couldn't honestly tell you if I had cancelled that I wouldn't have been people pleasing her because I care what she thinks. So it's like
Yeah.
I can't tell you what, there's that, I did what I did and it
Hmm.
worked out fine, but it's,
And
if
maybe
it
it's, you know, as I'm listening to you too, I'm going, well, maybe it's a yes and on all of that. You know,
yeah,
it's an element of this, and it's like spices. Yeah, it's spiked with a little people pleasing, and it's spiked
mm,
with a little arrogance, but it's also spiked with joy because I love doing the work that I do, and it's also, you know, it's more than just the one thing, and I feel like that's being more generous with yourself.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that goes back to that permission to rest thing. It's like, well, you've been
Hmm.
sick, you've had some rest, or you've had like, you've had some, you haven't had other bits, and it's like, and all of it's okay. I
Yeah.
think it's this thing of like, it's totally okay to sometimes wish to be sick because it's a perfectly acceptable reason to be resting. I
Yeah.
wish we didn't live in a world where it felt like that was necessary, but we do.
We do. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I've done it. I've definitely been like, oh, I said, didn't I? That, oh, I hope I get sick so I can justifiably have time off work. God, I am not saying all that experience right now, but like, it's, but I noticed that thought because it's a quite frequent thought for me. Well, I say frequent, it would be like every 6 months or something. And I
Hmm.
think it's just going, okay, if I get to the point where I'm thinking that, then I will stop and go, how can I create some space here? Because this isn't okay. Or I
Yeah.
need some help, or I need some support, or I like this idea of resourcing. It's like I need some resourcing, and that can look like all sorts of things for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for all of us too, but you know, resources are more than just cash, money on
Yeah.
hand, right? Resources is, yeah, good
Yeah.
food, rest, plenty of
But
water,
like even
happiness.
rest for me the other day was a 5 mile walk and a deep dive into God. That was
Yeah.
rest for me because I
Yeah.
don't get to do it. And it's like, so someone was like, oh my God, your idea of rest is going out all day walking in the freezing cold. I'm like, fuck yeah.
That is
Like, that
restful,
for me is
peaceful.
joyful, restful.
Yeah. Joyful happiness. Yeah. We all have different methods of that, right? It's,
I mean, on
you
another
know,
day, that would have been awful, but on that day, it was great.
yeah, it doesn't mean, you know, like resting has to be sitting around with your feet up, you know, unplugging from things or plugging into things, right?
No, so I wonder if there's a better word for it. I think resourcing is almost better than rest
I
because
like
resting
that.
is too attached, doesn't it? So it's like actually maybe when we're sick, we get permission to resource
Yeah. I
more.
actually like that because it makes me feel like, and then that's how I've been feeling the last couple of weeks is that I'm resetting and recharging. You know,
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm cycling up for something as I've gotten this, but also, you know, uh, interestingly enough, like when I was at the height or peak of being sick, I went through this really dark place, and I feel like that was a necessary place for me to go as well. I needed to feel some things and let the energy move around that.
Yeah.
I don't ever go like when I feel these things coming up, yeah, it's horrible. But we are living in a world right now that's really, really chaotic. And being an empath, we feel everything. And it's sometimes hard, especially when you're not fully resourced, to go, this is mine and that is not mine. We're feeling it all. And if you grew up like I did, where you come into the world and everyone around you is like not feeling good and angry and whatever, you do take it personally because there's no one telling you that what you're feeling isn't yours. You're just holding it. You don't know what to do with it, so you have to learn on your own. And that's, I feel like, what we're trying to unlearn now is that, yes, you're going to feel this, but do you necessarily have to make it yours and give it a story and all that other kind of stuff? You could just let it move or be with it, right? There's so many different ways of being with that, and it doesn't mean that, and it's, I love when you were talking about how you went into the depths of it and it turned into a deep joy and a deep love and because that's how I see that too, because it's one is contained within the other. It's not this or that. It's
So ahead of the game there.
we should probably start wrapping
Yes.
wrapping this up. It's getting long, but
Yes. I think
yeah.
it's just I think it would be the invitation. If I was going to give an invitation, it would be that idea of a himsa. It's like, what do you not need to do? That's a really great practice that I was given years ago of like, what do you not need to do today?
Yeah. And that's in line with reimagining your day, right?
Exactly. Like,
It's like
reimagine.
turning it
Yeah.
right around.
Yeah. Exactly. If we reimagined a to-do list, it's like, all right, write a not today list.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's my
Not today.
reimagining for the day.
Yes, I love it. All righty. So yeah, what are you working on for that's
What am I working on? I am about to go check out the retreat venue next week that we are using in May. We being me, because me are using in May in
yeah,
Cornwall that we will use one day, but not
we will
this
use
May.
one day. Yeah.
Which is super exciting. So we're doing me and my friend Jem are doing a spring into self-care retreat. So with the idea that people can get, again, that idea of like, oh God, it's spring, I must start creating and producing. It's like, no, hang on a minute. What we're going to produce is a window for self-care where we can just stop and take, this is a bit like literally what we've been talking about. The theme of that retreat is very much morphed into, hang on a minute, let's take a step back and look at what you want to create before you go, I'm going to create what though. Let's just let's just be really intentional about what we create in spring and summer this year, and then take into contemplation in autumn and winter. So yeah, we're that's what I am creating. So I'm excited to go. I love Cornwall. I'm very excited to go and scope out sunsets and sunrises.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah. What are you doing? Well, you're resting. You're resourcing.
I'm resourcing, but I'm also in March. I'm having since being a newly sanctioned teacher, I'm teaching a 5-part year-long apprenticeship program that starts at the end of March. So yeah, I'm waiting for that to fill, and that's kind of what I'm working on. But also this other little project, and how I'm working on it is I'm tending the fields about it. So I'm creating this little altar within an altar of this work that I want to do through the Mesa, creativity with the Mesa. I work with the Mesa a lot, and it really fuels a lot of my creativity. It's a lot of where my writing comes from. Not that I'm writing directly about that work, but it is the basis of all the work that I do. Even my healing work is that this is the form that it takes. So it's vision, heal, create, dream, and celebrate. So I have the different quadrants of the Mesa holding the energy for that. And I'm really just thinking about, I don't want to teach people how to be creative. We already are. Just giving a space for people to come and be in those different energies and work from there. Work in vision, work in heal, work in create, work in dream, and then work in celebrating, and how all of those things are part of a process. And they're at the base of everything that we do. So it's still coming into fruition, but that's what I'm working on. Working, non-working, really what I'm doing. I'm non-working.
Non-working.
Well, that's all we have for you today. We wish you much joy, much happiness, and ease on oneself.